Hi, my name is Karen Tisdell, and I'm a LinkedIn profile writer and everything to do with LinkedIn profiles, how to reach out and connect with people, incredible tips, I hope, on following up with people, and very excited to be with you today on the Online Prosperity Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, where we bring you the best minds in business to help you elevate your game. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we have a special treat lined up for you. Karen, or should I say Benedette, how are you doing today?
Can't believe you introduced me by my alter ego. Wanna be my name. I know, but sadly, it is Karen Tisdell, not Bernadette. Unfortunately.
Fantastic. Well, let's go with the one that runs off, the tongue a little bit, which obviously is Karen. But we all know there's a Benedict inside there somewhere. Now, for those that are wondering what's going on here, I'm really excited for this show today. I mean, I've known Karen for a while, and obviously, passing each other in the corridors of the internet, we then connected, and now we're bringing to you an exciting episode where you're literally going to learn how to use LinkedIn as your own powerhouse, because so many of us are still using it as a resume that they think it is. And you might be thinking, why Karen, and why now, and why are we talking about LinkedIn? Because I'll tell you something. Karen actually started her LinkedIn profile writing business back in 2009, when most of us were still figuring out what a status update is. And she already knew how to actually make the most of LinkedIn. She saw the potential of LinkedIn long before it became a powerhouse that it is today. So I think, when people really need to know and understand the history and the depths and where this platform is headed to, if they don't have Karen on their panel, I'm not interested, because they don't know nothing of what they're talking about. And Karen, I'm not just saying this, to toot your horn or anything else. I mean, LinkedIn is a very difficult platform, and you've been riding that wave ever since they started it off. So many people started off using it as a resume place. Now they're using it as a way to actually network and connect. And if I must say, if LinkedIn profiles were like the Olympic sports, you definitely be taking home the gold. So thank you so much for spearheading that and for doing all the learning that you did, because now you're going to be able to share that with us today on the show. So for those that are watching right now, please switch off those phones. I know you're thumb scrolling or doom scrolling on other platforms. Be on the lookout, because your LinkedIn will never look the same again. We're about to uncover some LinkedIn secrets that could transform how we can actually connect and grow our businesses. Now, Karen, as you can see, I'm a little bit starstruck. I can't help but really be excited of having a luminary on the show today. You were an early adopter of LinkedIn, and you started your profile writing business back in 2009. First of all, what inspired you to see LinkedIn's potential early on?
There were two things. I first learned about LinkedIn in 2005 in a lunch and learn when I was a recruiter. And our CEO, Luke Henningsen, did a lunch and learn about LinkedIn. And when he was talking about it, was living in Melbourne. I'm from Perth originally, and I'd spent a few years living in London. And I just looked at it and I just thought, wow, this is like an address book. And it really reminded me of my childhood address book. I had Holly Hobby on the front and gold gilding around the side. And because from a very young age, I used to collect everybody's names and contact details and addresses. And I did that because I learned really young at the family dinner table that success is all about who you know. My dad used to tell these amazing stories that he had in his career and of his travels. And he would always at the end of his stories say, and that happened because of so and so. So when I first saw LinkedIn, I thought, this is how I can keep in touch with everybody. It's not just to search for candidates, but I can use this as something that will constantly update, and I'll constantly be able to track people throughout their career and their professional journey. And it's also a way that, as somebody who's moved around a lot, and we were already, my now husband and I were talking about moving to Sydney, Australia, so from Melbourne. So we're already looking at moving again. And I thought, this is a way that I'll be able to build contacts, because I think so many people spend a lot of time, a lot of business owners, which as a recruiter, which is what I was, you're a business of one, really, and you've got to constantly be doing sales. And so many people, they build what they do and then they go out and find clients. And I always thought that was just the wrong way around. I don't know about you. And so I just loved that on LinkedIn, I could use it as an address book and I could collect lots of names and phone numbers and then build out my products. And that's exactly what I did in 2009. I was on maternity leave and I just started writing LinkedIn profiles, and it's just taken off. Here I am 15 years later.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. But obviously, if you mention it as an address book, I mean, I do have a lot of business cards that are piled up and I've been collecting over the years. This doesn't seem like what we have as a powerful engine as it was. I mean, back then the internet was not, well trusted, and thinking of putting your address on the internet, was that a common practice?
It wasn't an address book, but it doesn't have to be addresses. It doesn't even have to be phone numbers these days. It's about being able to reach out and connect with people and communicate with them. So I saw it as an address book in the sense that this is a way I could communicate with people and I could build trust. People always think about LinkedIn as a content publishing platform, that it's all about creating content. Well, I can tell you, didn't even have content on the platform until 2014. So for those early years of being on LinkedIn, it was about making sure that you had a really great profile that was SEO built so that people would find you. And it was about building out your network with people who could be potential clients. And content was something that came much later. And I'm really glad that I went through that journey, because I think a lot of people have this idea, and LinkedIn's really perpetuating that myth, that you just got to be the loudest person in the room. And it's not about being the loudest. It's about building real relationships. And that's what you can do on LinkedIn when you have a profile that talks to your audience, that showcases your authenticity, and you're reaching out, you're connecting with people, and you're mindfully and intentionally building those relationships, not just through content, but with DMs, that sort of thing. So it's what I help people do as well.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, like you said, you heard about this in 2005, which, if it was a lunch and learn, that would have been something new and, unheard of in that particular time. What was life like before LinkedIn? Because I don't think I can see how people would recruit and connect and have that vast network outside of your village.
So we used to have things on the walls. I think they were called planiograms. I probably got that wrong. And it was diagrams and boxes where, and you can get these tools as well. Actually, you can find them on the internet, which you would populate with different names. So we would be trying to find who's the head of procurement for Coca-Cola Amatil. And so we would be looking for who are these people in these roles that we could potentially put into jobs or that we could sell to. And so what I love about LinkedIn, and so many people don't realize, is that you don't have to put a word or a name in the search bar. You can just click enter in the search bar, click people, scroll to the left, click all filters, and you can search for all the people in a specific city, in a specific industry, who have if you scroll all the way down, who have a specific title. I don't need to sit there and do all this research to try and find like we did free LinkedIn, to try and find who's the head of this organization. I can put myself right in the path of my ideal clients. That's powerful stuff.
Fantastic. I like that a lot. And you did mention, obviously, you had a brief stint in the UK, in that sort of time. What was happening at that time, Karen?
I don't think I moved out of the pub scene, really. It was the early 1990s. So, but again, it was, I was from Perth, Western Australia, a small town, small city. And so moving to England, again, I was just so aware that who you know matters so much, because I went to England not knowing anybody. So it was all about, how do I get a role? How do I sort of get that next position? And I did sales over there. So again, it was very much around thinking about, how am I showing up and how do I get clients?
I can only imagine. Like, I can't even fathom how people used to survive without, these platforms. And there you were looking for sales roles. What was the application process like? Just for those at the back of the room that wouldn't have known how, there's no easy apply button in the real world there.
You want to know what life was like pre-internet? Oh, we had these things called filing cabinets, and we would just have filing cabinets of everything. And one of my early roles when I got back from England, I sent in an application for a role to sell courses at a college, and it's like a careers advisor kind of thing. And in the day, we had bound paper resumes, and if you had really expensive paper and it was really nicely bound, it would really stand out, and that would really help your application. So it would cost quite a few dollars to send these, because you couldn't fold them and put them in a resume, put them in a normal envelope. You had to have a big envelope to send these bound resumes. Anyway, I sent one off and I didn't hear back from them. And quite a bit of time had passed, and like maybe 3-4 weeks, and a new role had been advertised in the newspaper, the paper newspaper. And so I phoned them up and just said, I applied for a role with you, never heard back. I would like to apply for a new position. Can I drop by and pick up my resume? Because I was so poor at the time that I thought, it's going to cost me a few dollars to send it. I've got to get more paper. It's all about timing. So whether you're looking for a role or whether you're wanting to get a client, it's all about timing, and you've got to have that first mover advantage. So I needed to get my resume in really quick, and I was going into the city, and I thought I can physically drop it off to their reception, save on postage. So I said, can I come and pick it up? And she said, well, you're looking for a role then, obviously. And I said, yes. And she said, oh, well, when you come to reception, seek me out. Mention me by name, but don't say to the receptionist why you want to see me. Just ask for me. So I went there, and she ushered me into a room, and she said, I'd like to interview you for the job. She said, because you didn't get the role, somebody else did, but they're not working out. And so I thought that was really powerful in the days of paper resumes, this idea of following up and following up, because a bit like client acquisition, it's never a no, it's just a not yet. Sometimes the pain is not enough. And it's always worth following up. It's always worth keeping in touch with people, but not on LinkedIn, not in a spammy way, just always showing that you're there, because not everybody's ready to buy at the right time, at the same time.
Absolutely. I like that story because, I mean, obviously, I can imagine, you have this resume and you're like, you know what, this could be used somewhere else if you guys are not going to be utilizing it. Now, you then went on and became a recruiter. All right. What is it that you would look out for in somebody's resume, in that time that would make them a good candidate?
A little bit like we were talking about before we started recording today. I do believe that people think in patterns. Time is money, And when you were recruiting, and I started recruiting in the early 1990s, so it was recession. We didn't have a lot of job vacancies. We had hundreds and hundreds of candidates, of people looking for roles. And so you would glance at a resume, a paper resume in the day, really quickly, and you would just be looking to put people in a box. Is it a yes? Is it a no? And so I think those really formative experiences, and I was in recruitment for 15 years, 14 and a half years, so just under 15, it's a long time. And I think it made me very cognizant of patterns and how we might see a word here and we'll see a word there. So depending on what we're screening for and what we're looking for, and we're just trying to form a pattern. So it's really important if you're going for a role in IT and you happen to have an undergrad that's in human biology and you've got that at the very top of your resume, and that's the first thing I see, that's going to knock out that pattern. It's going to disrupt it a little bit. So anything that doesn't fit with the pattern, put it on the next page, put it further down. But at the same time, you do need some pattern disruptors where you're showing who you are in order to be sticky. So I think I learned really young in my career about how we think and how we buy and when people will make that purchasing decision. When am I going to submit a resume to a client and they're going to go, yeah, we want to interview that person? Because it's not about trying to, you're pimping people, really. You're selling to candidates, but you're also selling to clients as well.
Absolutely. And you moved on from being a recruiter and you started helping people write their LinkedIn profiles. And now you're transforming those profiles from a website that maybe somebody would have forgotten about into a flow of leads and business, connections. And I think all of that has just come full circle from the person that, you were before to now creating that address book for people. What's it been like since you stepped into this role of a profile expert?
I'm sure you deal with so many business owners, in your role, and you're such a marketing genius. I'm sure you encounter so many people who are just not good at marketing, and if they are good at marketing, there's a part of their business that they're really bad at. We all have those areas, and I think running your own business, it's not for the faint-hearted, is it? It's pretty full on, and it's been 15 years for me now, and I'm still the business side, the marketing side, all that stuff comes naturally to me. The accounts, the working on my business, getting the processes organized. Oh, Prosper, I do hope you haven't looked at my website. It's a bit of a cul-de-sac. We tend to, I think, as business owners, play to our strengths. And that's a great way to run a business, because if you've got really strong strengths and you're really niche in amplifying those, it's fantastic. But you've got to keep all the other wheels running, right? So I'm very cognizant that my BAS return is due this Friday and I must get it done. So stuff, that is not quite my strengths that I still have to do.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't, the ATO will be, or maybe they'll slide into your DMs on LinkedIn and be like, hey, how about that BAS return? Oh, well, they
Yeah,
have an
I'm
advance.
waiting for the day they contact me on LinkedIn. That would make it feel a lot less scary for me. So for sure.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, we, like I mentioned earlier on, we have obviously been sort of walking past each other on the corridors of the internet as internet explorers that we are. And as you have mentioned, there's thousands of people that you've probably helped, and I being one of them. When we first sort of met, you did mention my profile did not look the part, and you felt like I was going to get offended, but I took that as complete feedback, and I thought, why not? Because if people are seeing our profiles out there, they are going to obviously make their own conclusions, and it's not what we intend, but what they actually think is our business. Because at the end of the day, people are going to be buying from those that they sort of know, like, and trust. Now, thank you so much for that. But what are some of the common mistakes that people make with their LinkedIn profiles that you come across?
Yeah. Thank you for still talking to me, even though I did reach out probably a little bit harshly and go, I've seen your name so many times, and I think you've already sent me an invite to connect, which I declined, and I'm so sorry. You know, yeah, I think a lot of people don't think about those buttons that they're putting out. And a lot of people write I think almost everybody writes their profile for themselves as if they're the client. And I think it's just so important to think, who am I writing for? What am I selling? What are the pain points around that? And I think so many people hide behind the brand. So they just want to talk about the company name, and they have no personality in their profile. There's nothing warm, there's nothing personal, there's no sense of values or why you do what you do. They're just constantly giving you the company name and constantly creating content from the company page, which of course is like, pushing water uphill. And and those that do realize that it's individuals that will really help to grow the company and really help to acquire clients. They think it's all about them. We'll tell you our competitive advantage. Our competitive advantage is we've been around for 25 years. Writing LinkedIn profiles for 15 years it means I'm an expert, but it's not a competitive advantage. It's not something that solves people's problem. People's problems is that it's incredibly difficult to be objective about yourself. It's incredibly difficult, as you'd know through your own work, because you do a lot of work with people, don't you, in terms of helping them to understand who their client avatar is and even what a client avatar is. And I think most people just don't do that work. And I think it takes a third party to really help them define that.
Absolutely. And the one thing that people don't understand is our audiences are seeking information to make sense of the world around them. And if we can make that information available for them, then they get to know, like, and trust us. And we all know that people do business with those they know, like, and trust. But I sort of heard you say that, success on LinkedIn isn't just about content. Um, you know, I obviously believe people come to the internet to get information, and obviously this, like you said, is just a new addition to what LinkedIn has now become, and everyone is thinking, oh, content is king, and that's how we're supposed to show up on LinkedIn. Maybe you can walk us through what you mean by that and how you approach this differently.
Yeah. So LinkedIn has 1 billion members, and Instagram has over 2 billion. I think it's 2.43 billion. So you've got more people using Instagram for entertainment. And so they think that what works on Instagram works on LinkedIn, and it totally doesn't. So if you are creating content that doesn't pull new people, it can pull new people to you, but it takes a lot of time to create real value content that really helps people to learn and really shares your expertise. So you want to create content that, as you said, is knowledge giving. So think of yourself as that famous chef. Give away all your recipes. Just give them away, because if people don't have a strong enough pain, or maybe they can't afford your services yet, or they don't see value in paying for your services yet, they can take those recipes, cook them at home, become your biggest fan, and then they'll want to go to your restaurant. So just give all your knowledge away. But that's not how if you're going to think that that's how you build followers and connections, it's going to take you so, so, so long. A much quicker path is to have a profile that converts, so that when people look at your profile, they're very clear on what you do and how you do it and how they can contact you. So many people don't even have contact details on their LinkedIn profile. And then they wonder why nobody ever emails them via they just think, but they can connect with me. Not everybody wants to connect. Some people just want to go, I've got a question. How many times do you have something sitting in your shopping cart and you don't ever buy it because you've got a question on it? So it'd be really easy to buy. But more than that, use those search fields. Reach out to everybody you know. Then reach out to people who know a lot of people that you know. So you and I keep crossing in the corridors of the internet because we know a lot of people in common, and a lot of people that that I really like you, and so, and rightly so. It's that friend for friend effect. If everybody is talking to Prosper and everybody's connecting with him, we should be connecting with him. So there's that sort of feeling. So rather than just sort of think, "Oh, I've got to create content and that takes a long time to create those beautifully crafted recipes," use make sure you've got a great profile, use the search filters, reach out and connect with people. Doesn't have to be with a spammy message. In fact, please don't do a spammy message. You're better to do no message than a spammy message. Just reach out, build your audience, and nurture relationships through direct outreach.
Mm. And I like what you said, because you did mention that have a profile that converts, because yeah, you can't invite people to a party and you don't have food for them, you know what I mean? Or you don't have the kind of food preference. So there's so many aspects of the LinkedIn profile that maybe people need to optimize and look at. And like you said, your LinkedIn profile sort of shapes how people perceive you. And so many people don't know what theirs says about them. You've got a process of connecting with people. How do you reverse engineer that sort of success on LinkedIn by connecting with clients? Can you maybe walk us through your process?
Yeah, totally. I've got a couple of different processes. So one that I teach my clients is to have a habit of once a week, every week, look at your diary. Who have you met? Who have you spoken to? Send them an invite to connect. Who are you meeting in the week coming up? Send them an invite to connect, because then your LinkedIn profile becomes that warm handshake. It makes that meeting go much more smoothly if people can look at your profile and realize, oh, we went to the same university, or we come from the same town, or something like that. So, and once a fortnight, have an active search for people who are your ideal clients. So I mentioned the word client avatar before. So something that you're an expert in. So have a search for who are your ideal clients. Just click enter in the search bar and search for them, and do that, sorry, not once a week, once a fortnight. And then on the alternate fortnight, you want to click on My Connections, My Network, then My Connections, and then look at who you've recently connected to and send them a voice note. Voice note is my second step in that process, because trust in the written word has been declining since the 1970s. We don't trust what we read at all. In fact, we actually brace ourselves for being sold to. Trust in what we see has also been really wobbly in the recent years. It's also very time consuming. If you send somebody a video, it's going to take you ages to do. For me, my hair's, just never looking great. I don't know if you have the same problem. So I really struggle with video, and it takes a lot of energy to watch, and they take ages to send. So on all levels, video can be quite tricky. But sending a voice note is a little bit different. And it has really great cut through. People like listening to voices. It's why podcasts are so hugely popular. And trust in voice is actually increasing, unlike every other medium. And scientists are thinking that's probably because of our reliance on GPS and Google Assistant. When our GPS tells us to turn right, we just blindly follow it. So we like voices, we trust voice. And so that's my second step, is to leave people a 1-minute message. And as I said, I batch these activities. So once a fortnight, search for people. The alternate fortnight, leave people a voice note. And that voice note, you can only do on your mobile phone once you've connected with somebody. You cannot do it on desktop, and you can't do it until you've connected with them. And if you just go into the message button, it's just at the bottom right there. It's a little microphone, and you click it and it'll come up with a big blue dot. You swipe it and the message will be deleted. And so the voice message I leave is a sandwich. It starts with them, it ends with them, and in the middle, it's about you. And that has to feel somewhat incidental, because if I left you a voice note that said, Rossa, it's great to connect. Oh, I didn't even say it's great to connect because it was all about me. And I started off straight away by sort of saying, I'm a LinkedIn profile writer. Let me know if you ever need anything. It sounds straight away like a sales pitch. So you have to start with it being about them, and then incidentally mention what you do. So, and a great bridge to that is, hi, Prosper, it's really great to connect, loving your podcast, gosh, you're coming close to sort of so many hundreds of episodes. Well done. Look, I really liked your episode about XYZ. Look, I don't know if you had a chance to have a look at my profile. If you did, you might have noticed that I'm a LinkedIn profile writer and also do LinkedIn training. I've been a popular podcast guest, so if you ever want me on your podcast, let me know. But I just wanted to reach out and say thanks so much for the invite to connect. Something like that, So it starts with them, ends with them. In the middle, it's about you.
Absolutely. I quite like that. And now that you've mentioned, normally when somebody sends me a voice note, maybe I'm busy doing this right now, but that's the first thing that I go to when I get a moment. And because I know that person has taken time to actually create that piece of content, and I can't wait to hear what it is that they have left me there. And I think psychologically your brain is just going to be like, oh my god, let's finish off with Karen or Benedette, or let's go and sit in the lounge room and eat an apple and listen to this voice note.
Well, even if you don't have time to listen to it, there may be people who have the opposite reaction. I don't have time to listen to a voice note. Oh, this feels really weird. Why is she sending me a voice note? And I'll make time to listen to that later. So even if you've got people who fall into that camp, at least you've stood out, and at least you've demonstrated it's not AI. This is not some automated messaging system, which is actually illegal on LinkedIn, but and if you do use automated messaging, you can be shut down. But it's not a VA. This is not a virtual assistant responding on my side. Like, she's genuinely reached out and left me a voice note. So, and it has to come through. It just stands out. So I think that's really important. And then you can think about a sequencing. So every sort of maybe 4, 6, 9 months. You don't want to do it too often. You have to do it like twice as slowly as you do it in real life. Reach out and say, here's an article that I read that I thought you might be interested in. It has to be something that you haven't written. It cannot be self-promotional. Here's a podcast episode. Sending podcast episodes to people via LinkedIn is so powerful, because you just quickly drop the link and you say, I remembered we recently-ish connected and that you are in the cybersecurity space, and I think you'd find this podcast really interesting, especially at 24 minutes in. And so that just looks so, like we are in the era of personalization, right? Last decade, everyone was talking about customer journey and customer success, not with customer experience. Now it's all about personalization, hyper personalization. Everybody wants to be seen and feel special, and rightly so. So make your follow-up cadence very personal.
Absolutely. Well, you caught me. I was just about to send my wife a voice note so that she can make me my favorite for dinner today. But I understand what you're saying, and it's so important because we're here to connect, and we have to create for and relate to the audience that we're trying to reach out. It's not just a spray and pray episode where we just randomly connecting with randoms and get surprised when our news feed no longer belongs to us, and you're like, who are these people? And eventually you decide not to log in because you're not feeling welcome in your own space. But there's something that you also mentioned that during this conversation you might allude to certain parts of your profile and things of that nature. I think the about section of a LinkedIn profile can be a little bit tricky. People don't quite know how to work that out. And I feel like what you say, which basically is a sandwich, does that also relate to that section where you talk about, them, and then, maybe them, a little bit about you, and then them again in a way, or really showcasing that you can help them throw rocks at their enemies, and hey, I'm the best person for this. Maybe you can walk us through that part, because I find a lot of people get confused with that particular session.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I do have a framework for that, but it's not a sandwich. And the reason why it's not a sandwich where it starts with them and it ends with them is because um, countless studies have shown that when you've got a big piece of text, the more people are scrolling, the more they're losing attention. So, so that thing about it's actually called the science of primacy and recency, what we see first and what we see last. I always think of it as the movie effect. So, when it comes to voice notes, we need to start interesting and end interesting, but we can get away with sort of putting stuff in the middle that's going to serve our artistic purposes. But with the about section, you really want to instead, the purpose of every sentence is to get them to read the next sentence and to get them to read the next sentence, because every single sentence, every single paragraph break, you run the risk of losing attention. So you've got to keep it super engaging. You cannot get boring in the middle. You just can't. So I have a framework where it really starts by talking in the first person all throughout the profile. And by first person, I mean, don't say Prosper is a, but hi, welcome to my profile, da, da, da. Talk in the first person, be very personal, and start your profile by really talking to their pain. And a great way to do that is just by having a question. Have you ever wondered, I mentioned cybersecurity, are you worried about security breaches in your company, da, 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 these are some stats. So really talk to the pain initially. And really, that might be some statistics. Questions are really good that are your frequently asked questions. Really meet your audience where they're at. Then you want to talk about some hero statements. So hero statements being, this is what I've done for other clients. You could swap that out, talk before or after that around your why you do what you do. And then you want to have something personal in there. So when I'm not at work, you'll find me doing X, Y, Z. And then end with a call to action and your contact details. You don't have to put a phone number, although I do, because I never want to miss a client. But please have an email address. Not everybody likes to communicate via LinkedIn. So it really is those sort of steps of starting with them, then talking about some hero statements, what you've done for other people, then talking about why you do what you do. And as I said, those sort of second, third bits can be interchanged, then a couple of personal things, then have a call to action. In the experience section, if you scroll much further down on the profile, that is such a sadly neglected part of the profile. People spend ages writing their about section because it's really hard to write. And then they think, okay, done that, loaded up a banner, tweaked my headline, I'm done. And you are not done, because people go down to your previous experience, because a really great profile, they want to see how long have you been doing what you're doing and what was your background before this. So you really want to spend some time looking at all your previous roles and make it so that it looks like everything you've ever been doing was leading up to this moment. All the problems you're ever solving was helping you to develop the expertise that you have today to solve your clients' problems. And then in that experience section, don't use the sandwich. Go hard with the hooks. Go hard for the sale and have your contact details. Because if people have scrolled down to your experience sections, you've earned the right to sell. They're interested. Tell them. Tell them what they can buy. Even maybe tell them how much. I put my prices in my experience section, because that way I'm not wasting anybody's time. So you don't have to put your prices, but just give it to people straight in your experience section. And don't just make it a paragraph or a couple of sentences. And please don't wheel all over yourself. We do this, we do that, we do this. And we don't want to hear about the we's. We just want to hear about how you can solve our problems. Sorry, was I a bit crass? Yes.
You're talking about weeding people. I'm just thinking to myself, wow, that is what I come across almost all the time, you know. Um, but that's quite interesting because yeah, you know, if you those are some of the underutilized parts of our profiles. And I was just thinking to myself, my profile, I only have the one job that I'm doing now. There's no background, nothing. I just have that particular job. And yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe that everything else will be a distraction because, you know, I've been a dolphin trainer before and I don't know how that's going to help anyone or, you know, walking with lions and things of that nature, you know. But I do understand if it leads up to who you are, it's like the resume building part, you know, that people would want to know that you've got prior experience. So not only are you helping people write their profiles, you also train people and businesses, right, to ensure that they have actually got great profiles and know how to leverage them effectively. Because yeah, so I don't think everyone is doing it right.
Actually, I don't help people write their profiles. That is my training side because I'm a really bad coach. I'm really bad at leading you to the problem and helping you to see what the solution is, and to helping you to discover that yourself. I'm just like, so my LinkedIn training, that's group training, and I do run webinars for people, which are open to the public every 3 months. So, hit me up and let me know if you'd like to know when the next one is. And they're 2 half days and they're online. But otherwise, they're for corporates. And that's where I teach people how to use LinkedIn, how to write their profile. And it's very much in a group situation. But one-on-one, I'm way too impatient. I'm just not that sort of nice person where I'm like, let me just hold your hand. I'm like, can you just get out my way and I'll just write your profile for you? So we're going to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours doing a big discovery call where I'm going to ask 101 questions about you, and I'll have Googled everything before we come to that meeting. And then I'm going to write your profile. Then I'm going to upload it for you. I don't want you to upload it yourself because you're just not going to do it as well as I could do it. So, and I know that sounds arrogant, but that's just kind of the voice inside my head. So, ages I tried to teach people how to write their profiles, but it only works for me in a group setting. Otherwise, I just get too frustrated. I'm like, just get out of my way and I'll do it for you. I teach
Absolutely.
people how to use LinkedIn as part of that service because, it's not easy. I know the observation yourself, LinkedIn constantly changes, doesn't it? Just when you think you've figured out where everything is, LinkedIn go and improve the user interface by changing it yet again. So, which keeps us LinkedIn trainers on our toes.
Absolutely. I quite like that. But at the end of the day, so many people should just realize that it is a platform and a network where you can actually utilize to connect with a lot more people. You know, the algorithms might change and things of that nature, but at the core of it, like you did mention, it is a database that has been built over the years. And I think it's one of the most credible databases because no one on LinkedIn would say they are a jet pilot when they are not, or they're just maybe somebody who does a certain job. Whereas on other platforms, I've seen people writing astronaut on their career, or as in that's what they're doing. From your experience, what's sort of like the use case of how people approach LinkedIn? I feel like it's the only platform people actually go on with their pants on. All the other platforms, it's
Their pants on. I love that. I love that. That's such a cool expression. I hope I can borrow that from you. I will give attribution on your pants on, as Prosper says. So this is his podcast. Oh, I do love that. It's because people always think of it as a resume. Most people do upload all their previous roles. There are bad actors out there. There are people who'll say, "Oh, I'm an astronaut." And LinkedIn have got a huge health and safety team. LinkedIn have been making people redundant in the last 5 years. They've had significant people cuts. They're just trying to make themselves as profitable as they can and as lean as they can. But the one area where they're constantly increasing their staff is their health and safety team. And health and safety means cybersecurity, making sure that everything's really safe and that there aren't any bad actors. So whenever people see bad actors, they can easily report it. LinkedIn take it very seriously. But even if they don't get called out, LinkedIn are constantly, like they have so many employees that are constantly scouring the platform. And they also have bots, of course, as well, their own bots that are looking for any signs of fake profiles to bring them down. So it's a very clean space. It's not a space you get trolled. It's not a space that, you have a lot of malicious activity because it's so transparent around who you've worked for in the past.
I'd say, yeah. And half of the times when you claim you're working for a big company, there needs to be somewhat of a proof, or some other people from that company have to actually validate that. And I find that very, very interesting. Now, for those that are just maybe getting started on LinkedIn, they're obviously late to the party. I mean, 2009 till now, there's already so much that has happened, and so much that you can now teach other people. What are maybe just the top three things they should focus on to make an impactful presence online?
I think that background banner piece, it's prime real estate. I think most people have got a background banner, but it still amazes me that some people don't. I also find it quite interesting that a lot of people, that background banner, the bit that sits behind your profile photo, a lot of people don't really think about whether it really accurately represents where they're at now and where they're going and what they do. I think a lot of people do probably what I've done with my website. They sort of spend some time on it, load something up, and then promptly forget about it. And I think you need to set yourself a calendar reminder note of once a year, just go in, have a look at your background banner. Once every 3 months, go and download all of your data. Once every 6 months, have a look at some of the keywords that are in your LinkedIn profile. Make sure that they're current. So background banner, headline, the bit that sits underneath your name is really important. And make sure that you've got some good keywords in there and that it really starts strong. So I often see headlines that start with, I help small business owners to, and you've just got to remember people's attention spans are super short. Get straight to the point really quickly. Start with what you do, put yourself in a box, think about that pattern, and then make that box bigger. 220 characters in there to do that. I know you said only 3 sections. I do think the about section is really important. And I'm, as said, a big fan of having contact details at the bottom there. It's not easily scraped in that section. The 4th section I would add is your experience section. I think it's important to flesh that out. And oh my gosh, the featured section. Now we're running into 5, aren't we? So the featured section, I see LinkedIn are always saying to you with the featured section to upload your posts into the once you activate the featured section. If you can't see one on your profile, just click on add profile section and it's under recommended. So that's right up at the very top there. And LinkedIn will push you repeatedly to put your posts in your featured section. But it's sometimes posts that pull people's attention to your profile. So they've come to your profile because they've seen your post, and then you just give them more posts or the same post. So we really should be using our featured section for small business owners. Need to be thinking, what's our lead magnet that we're using to collect email addresses? What's our website address? If you were featured in Harvard Business Review, show me. Don't just tell me that you're amazing, show me. So I think you've got 3 pieces on desktop of featured. On mobile, it only shows up with 2 and a bit. So just make sure that you've got something that's impactful in that area.
Absolutely. And I quite like that, because so many people just stick a profile picture, have a banner with somewhat of a message around what they're doing, and their featured section usually just ends up being the most liked post or other people's posts that they just put on there, and not realizing that that's prime real estate where you literally need to be converting those people that are looking on your profile into customers that come into your database and things of that nature. And I just feel like, some of this information is common sense, but hey, if it was all common, everybody would be doing it. Now, Karen, how would you encourage maybe people to get in touch with you and learn more about maybe your journey or what it is that you guys are working on? Is there ways that people can reach out to you?
Well, as said, I think I've said it 3 times. I will be updating my website because I'm so inspired by your work. So you can find my website, which is currently a ghost town, but I will be working on it, KarenTisdell.com, or just find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, of course. So Tisdell, Karen Tisdell. Dell as in Bell. So yeah, just find me, reach out. I love people to connect with me, and I've got lots of free resources. So if anybody wants any free stuff, I've got all sorts of articles that will help you to improve your profile.
Fantastic. Now, Karen, you started us off in 2005. You were having a lunch and learn. I don't know if it was part of your mission, because you can't mention food in front of hungry kids from Africa, but that's a story from another day. I haven't had my lunch, so I was just thinking lunch and learn. If you were to facilitate that lunch and learn, and it's 2005, and knowing what you know about what LinkedIn is gonna become, and you are telling everyone in that room, what would you have been telling them at that particular day?
But it's connection. It's connection that matters. That what's happening in the future and what will happen in the future is LinkedIn's going to make itself all about content, and it's going to pretend that it's a content creation platform. Well, it is one, but it's going to really be pushing that envelope really hard because it wants everybody creating content and using its AI tools, if you've got premium, to do so. Then, because so many people are creating content, it's going to be really hard to get great traction of that content, and then you'll have to pay for advertising. So that'll be what LinkedIn will do next, increasingly pushing that advertising bucket to get more money. And I'd say to people, just be reaching out. Don't follow unless they're people who are not going to be your ideal clients. Like, you're interested in them, they've written a book that you like, but it just doesn't make sense to connect with them. Your connections are always far more likely to see your content than followers are. And if you can slide into people's DMs and they can slide into yours, that's a relationship. You need to honor it. You need to earn it, but connect.
I quite like that. And obviously, so many people just use it as, oh, I've got 10 minutes. What do I do? But there has to be a strategy behind everything that we're doing in order for us to stop random acts of marketing on the internet there. So I can't thank you enough for you taking us on this epic journey of really just exploring what LinkedIn is all about. And yeah, it's quite remarkable that some things that we take for granted would actually literally help us connect a lot more with our audience. So thank you so much for obviously sharing your incredible insights and practical advice with us today. I mean, your journey in and of itself is truly inspiring. You just didn't wake up and saw a platform. No, it's something that you've been at for a while. And you've also worked on the other side where the internet didn't even exist. So you're putting in all that experience and expertise now because it's easier. You're making it, easier for people to be profitable and create enjoyable experiences for themselves and their customers on the internet. And for that, you doing your little part in making the internet a better place for every one of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Right back at you, because I love your work, and I think so much of what I hear you talk about, thinking about conversion and thinking about who your ideal clients are and not being random in your activity of marketing. You and I are both such big fans of being really intentional about who you want to target. So I just, yeah, really thrilled to be on your podcast. I'm really honored. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. And I'm sure our audience has learned a lot about how to make LinkedIn actually work for them. Be sure to either follow or connect with Karen. I'll be putting the details in the show notes below. And for those that are watching, I really want you to take note of what just happened here. It's not every day you get an expert who literally tells you how to work with a platform that you think you already know. If you know anything about life, yes, we learn to walk, but if you want to be a model, you learn to walk on the catwalk. And this is somewhat of the catwalk. Yes, you've been doing whatever you've been doing on LinkedIn, but there's certain ways and certain things that will actually enhance your profile so you can actually create for and relate to the audience that you really want to connect with. And if you're just going to be showing up with random acts, or what I call my daughter's drawing that we just, yes, stick on the fridge, just so we don't hurt her feelings, it's not going to carry you any further. I know she's going to listen to this when she's a bit older, but I think that healing would have happened all this while. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve and continue getting top-notch advice from experts like Karen, I encourage you to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show. And if you come across somebody whose LinkedIn profile is looking lackluster, just share this video with them. They might learn a thing or two that would help them do and have a business that's profitable and enjoyable. Until next time, keep striving. Bye for now.